right, so it's my pleasure now to introduce four-time Olympian Ramona Pagel. And a quick introduction here. Ramona broke the U.S. record 13 times over her 20-year career. She was first world ranked American in her event, the first world ranked American in her event in over 30 years, 12 straight years throwing over 60 feet in the shot. And she's also the coach of U.S. record holder in a third throwing event. In 1985, she threw 62, 9 1/4 to break the American record for the first time. In 1987, she popped a monster throw indoor 65 feet, 3/4 inch. It remains the U.S. indoor record. In 1995, Ramona placed 7th in the world and was ranked in the top 10 in the world, the first American female shot putter since 1960 to achieve such an honor. She was ranked as high as number 2 in the U.S. in the Discus in 1986 and 1988, and her Discus career best is 2:03.2. She did that in 1987. So let's talk a little Discus with Ramona Pagel. Ramona?
Hello, everyone. Well, I got to tell you, this is a little different. I'm sure it's the same for everyone. I'm going to share my screen. And I really, my plan here is that this is going to be about 35, 40 minutes, depending upon how long-winded I go. But I wanted to kind of do some real basics, especially since it'd be real complicated to do anything more. So we're going to work on learning and to not only learn the Discus, but to try and teach the Discus, taking it kind of a different approach. So super basic. The back of the ring is, we're in the back, away from the sector, which is the front of the ring, the sector lines. So you have to enter the ring. You can enter the ring any way you want. You have to leave the back half of the ring. So if you're looking at a ring away from the sector, gosh, I didn't realize explaining everything was going to be so hard. It worked better in my head. Again, the cage, if your Discus hits the cage and it bounces in the sector, little known rule, it is still a legal throw. So make sure that gets measured. I actually used that once. Throwing in general. So this would be for any event, whether you're throwing the javelin or the hammer or anything. The force is always going to be applied from the ground up. And I think one of the reasons that I really wanted to show this picture of is that if you take away the Discus of her throw and you maybe just look from the waist down, it looks more like a squat than it does a standing throw. And so you can really see how much of force without being there, you can see that force coming up through the ground. It comes through the legs and through the hips and out the shoulders and then into the throwing arm. As a young thrower, so many kids they want to throw with just their arm. So trying to get that idea. I've kind of transitioned my life from track into fitness. And if you teach physical education or you teach anything out of fitness, think of that hinge movement. Those hips are the hinge movement of the throw and how important that is in fitness. And we always knew it in athletics, but now in fitness, we're learning. We're a little behind the times. Also work on a long range of motion. So you look at Perez here and you can see her arms are extended. She's not bringing her arms in to throw or even to block. She wants that big, long extension, which is going to alternately give her that long pull on the Discus. So the other example or a mental picture that you can use is snapping a towel, right? If you're short with that towel, it's not going to snap at the end. So we want that nice flick snap at the end. This next one's really, really important to explain to young throwers. We want to go from slow to fast or an acceleration. When I'm coaching, I use the on-ramp to a freeway, right? We want to accelerate up to the lane. We don't want to just gun it from the bottom. We want to accelerate up that ramp. And this one, like I said, kids, they look at videos and they'll see somebody going fast and think that that's what they have to do. But if you stop and to actually release the discus, all that power is gone. So working on that slow to fast. And then keeping your center of mass, your belly button, needs to be over your power leg. Your power leg is whichever leg is in the middle of the ring. That's where your power is coming from. So whether you're left or right-handed. So those are some basic throwing, and it doesn't matter, like I said, what event we're talking about. Okay, some factors that affect you teaching, right? How your athlete learns. If you have 10 athletes, they learn 10 different ways. And you say the same thing and they hear 10 different things. So it's a very individual, it's a very complex movement, the discus. So you have to understand how each of your athletes learns. You have the visual, right? When I was showing you the picture of Perez, I gave you several different cues on what I was trying to describe. And I think if you can teach online like this, you've learned a whole lot about teaching. But the visual, right? You could see the power in her legs. You could see that squat. So you understood that, because everybody knows how to squat. Maybe not right, but they know how to push against the ground. Or giving you that verbal, right? I've given you that verbal of push, or I've described it with that getting up out of the chair. You're having to push down onto the ground. What type of an orientation does that athlete have? Are they a goal-oriented athlete, like I just want to throw, I just want to make it go far? Or are they a task-oriented athlete where they want to learn how to do it correctly, or they want to perfect each part of the throw? You're going to be more successful with that athlete that has both of those. They're goal-oriented, but they want to do the process, and they want to work that process and be task-oriented. I think, and this is just a sideline, but I think more and more now we get athletes that are more goal-oriented, and they lose the idea that the work that entails to go in to be successful. And I think in real life, this is because I'm old and I'm learning, but that task orientation is going to carry you throughout life. Just a side note. Biomechanical. The trial and error, right? Make mistakes. Oh my gosh, please make as many mistakes as possible. No mistake is wasted if you learn from that mistake. Another life lesson, right? Learn from those mistakes. The whole part method of teaching, and that's kind of how I relate, especially on a young thrower. You want to take apart that throw. You want to learn each segment of the throw and then put it together. But I would encourage you that as you plan your workouts, that you learn each part, right? Part out that work, that technique, but then at the very end, give them some chance to put those parts and pieces together so that they understand that it's part of a whole and not just a drill. Perfecting a drill is great, but if it's not part of that throw, it's just a perfect drill. And then teach and learn about feedback, right? You have that internal feedback, and ask your athlete, how did that feel? Especially after the good throws. Try and get them to memorize what that good throw felt like and how it differed from maybe the throw before that wasn't so great. Or have them recall those big PRs that they have in a meet, and they have a better throw in a practice. How did that relate to that throw? And then you, as the coach, you're giving them feedback all the time. And make sure that you, as you're coaching your athlete, that you give them, this wasn't very good, but you did this well. And try and always finish off with that, you did this part well. And there's every athlete had some zingers in that time, but every athlete has something they did well. They came to practice that day. They did good. Some factors that affect distance. I'd be remiss if I didn't really put this in here. Speed of implement at release, right? I told you, stay away from that speed part, right? but it's at the release that's the most important. If your discus is going 10 miles an hour, make sure it's at the release, right? And not at the back of the ring or at the prep phase. Angle of release, 32 to 38 degrees. Like, okay, well, what is that? I don't know. I mean, it's about here. And then the height of release. Those are three factors. The speed, we have some power over. The angle, we have some power over. The height of release, we have a little bit of power over, but your taller athlete is always going to have a higher angle of higher release than your shorter athlete. So, and then I was writing this down and I was thinking about this, and it's like, your athlete really doesn't care about this. I remember when I was a young thrower, my brother's a physicist, and he gave me a picture, and he did the whole calculation of my angle of release. And it's like, thanks. What does that mean? So, you know, it was the love that was there, though. I appreciated that. Some critical factors. Ooh, I love these pictures from the top. Ooh, these are awesome. We did not have these when I was throwing. Hips must lead the shoulders. So in this first picture on the left, you can see how, maybe you can, I can see it, right? His hips and shoulders are perpendicular to each other, right? They're making a nice cross there. If you look at the shoulder plane and then the hip plane, right? So those hips are leading the shoulders in the turn. Can you visualize that? Right? The hips are leading those shoulders in the turn. And he's holding that discus, but it's just kind of hanging out there, right? The turn from this right leg is what's giving him the power. And in this, out of the back here, same thing. The shoulders have crossed the legs. They're getting a great drive across the ring. The shoulder plane is stopped, and the hips are leading. If you get me a couple more frames forward, you're going to see those hips pushing into the middle of the ring while the shoulders are staying back. So we're getting that cross. So the hips are always leading the shoulders. And consequentially, the hips then link the shoulders, the legs, so start from the ground up, right? The legs link through the hips to the shoulders. So if you get the shoulders ahead, your sequence is off. So these are concepts and things that if you look at any throw, you'll be able to sense what's wrong with that throw and then examine it more and more, and you're going to understand how to change it. So giving you the tools to make the changes, right? So some phases of the throw. The prep phase is going to start all the way from, holding the discus, back of the ring. So that's a prep phase. Preliminary phase is as you build that speed up out of the back of the ring. I'll show some pictures of these. Your building phase sets up the throw ahead of the discus. So in this previous slide here, this down here, as she's coming out, that is that flight phase that you're looking for, that building phase. And then you can see it happening right here. Just as this foot touches the middle of the ground, that's when we're getting into that transfer phase. We're transferring the weight from that left leg drive out of the back into the right foot touchdown. And that right foot takes that momentum and circles it around to the front. And then we get into the delivery phase. So the delivery phase would be a standing throw where you're at the front of the ring. So when I teach, I do that part whole teach, and I teach from the delivery phase back into the throw. So we're looking at teaching the basic stand. And that's where I'm going to kind of spend the majority of my talk, I guess. Gosh, I just realized we're 20 minutes in. I lied about the 30 minutes. All right. Sorry. So basic, I'm going to just go through these, and then I'm going to turn you over to my other camera, and I'm going to actually try and show them to you. So basic stage, right? We're at the front. Basic, we got somebody fresh out of whatever sport they're playing right now, basketball, football, whatever, and we got to teach them how to throw. And we want them to be as successful as quickly as possible, right? Because if we have an athlete that's successful early on, we hook them into the sport and we got them for life. Thank you, Coach Falink. Right? So gripping your discus, rolling it off your fingers correctly. So I'm going to kind of show that. I got a few pictures over here. That was the best I can do. Gosh, Google is wonderful. The concept that as the discus comes off of your finger, it's actually rotating. So we're learning that by doing bowling the discus, partner bowling, target bowling. Let me jump. I'm gonna stop my screen share, and I am going to go into my other camera. This better work. Okay, so I am going to. Somebody tell me if you can't see this, right? All right, so holding your discus. So your fingers make a little crook, right? That first phalange bends. You're going to put the edge of the discus on the phalange, right? Some people hold their two fingers together. Some slide their finger down the middle. None of those were particularly successful for me. But you're going to just cup the discus in your hand, right? And your kids are going to be terrified because that discus is going to fall out. And I encourage you to let the discus fall out because that's going to reduce their fear, right? So we just want them to swing the discus back and forth. That would be the very first thing I'd have them do after I show them how to hold it, right? Just swing it, right? Try and get it so they're not doing what I'm doing right now. I'm kind of cupping it. I'm rolling it in. And you want to have a nice long lever, right? We talked about that one of the first two slides. Nice long lever. And then we work on bowling the discus. So the discus is going to come off of that first finger and rotate around. So it's going to come off and rotate around this way. And we do that by I don't want to ruin my floor, right? So bend your knees and bowl that discus. And what we're trying to do is get that discus to roll end over end. And at first it won't. It'll go sideways and this way, and eventually they'll get the hang that it's just a little bit of a push off of that first finger. And you're going to have some kids that maybe go off their second finger. Just keep practicing, keep working on it, right? Okay, I have my cheat sheets over here. Target bowling is if you put two cones out, right? So first you're going to have your kids line up facing each other. I know, kind of scary. And then just roll it on the ground. The lower they release the discus to the ground, the more successful they'll be at first. And then you can have them take two big steps back and swing the discus, bend their legs, step, and throw. So you're going to step with the opposite leg that you're throwing with. And getting a nice little arc. So we're wanting it to go up and straight back down. On edge. Okay. And then partner tossing. You might not trust them at first, so just do one line. And then as you get a little more confident with them, you can separate them out. All right. Then I wanted to show the basic standing throw. I thought my picture in here is going to be.
You're good. We can see your feet where you are right there.
And okay, I'm going to go to speaker view so I can see what I'm doing.
Okay.
I'm doing it right, got to coach myself. All right, so I learned this, sure, high school, right? And if you've been in track, some of you, I saw who was out there. I'm embarrassed. Okay, so arch, I'm right-handed. Arch of my right foot inside the ball of my left foot, and you step a little wider than shoulder width apart. That's it. You're now in a standing throw position, right? You're going to shift your weight up to the balls of your feet. Shift your weight back to your right leg, my power leg, and rotate your shoulders back. I'm in my standing throw position. To come out of that standing throw position, push my right knee in, my heel out, and let my hips come around, and then the discus. So what I want to have happen then with my young athletes, I've taught them to bowl. We've started tossing the discus, right? Then I'm going to get them in that stance, which they're going to be super uncomfortable with. And before I have them rotate all the way back, I'm going to have them swing that discus back and forth, relaxing that arm nice and long, have them turn the right foot and try and plane that discus off so it's flat, right? Off that first finger. And the first, it's going to wobble and it'll come off here and come off there. So separate them out, right? But that way they're going to be more comfortable. A lot of our young athletes, they get scared to have their back to where they're throwing. They get disoriented. So start them easy, right? Then you can work them back to a full stand. And same thing, you want that discus to plane. So we're parting that out for you, part by part. Okay. I hope that was helpful. Share screen. Back to where we were. Okay. Half stands. I showed you shadow throws. That's just trying to mimic a throw. I would have them do what I really like. One of the coaches I used to coach with, Coach Harrison, he was awesome at this. We had 20, 30 throwers, and if you weren't in the ring, you were doing some kind of a pattern drill, whether it was just a stand or a 180 or something, but you were doing it. And you weren't doing it. You were in trouble. I love that about it. All right, so here's the actual basic stand, non-reverse, but I'm explaining that this is your delivery phase. This is the end of the throw. This guy's doing it good. I don't know who he is, but thank God for the internet. I could pull this stuff off. And we're not trying to reverse. We're not focusing on blocking. We're just trying to plane that discus off. If I were coaching this guy, I'd want him to finish that right turn foot. He does at the end, but look at that block. It's inside, and we want that long range of motion. That's what I do. All right, so flight phase. So I'm working back into the ring, right? So this is when you're coming off and driving across. So we're turning out of the back to a drive to the front. I can't see my picture over here, but this one's actually a better South African position. So I'm kind of giving you an example. I'll go back to the demonstration in a second. Prep phase. This is out of the back of the ring. This is where our young athletes are terrified because you're throwing behind you, right? That's what they think. So it's a slow process. We got some drills for this. I'll show you what those drills are. But this is where we start to build the separation between the hips and the shoulders. At this point, it appears that their shoulders are with their hips, but the energy level is all hips. The shoulders are complete. I mean, look at that beautiful arm right there. Nice and relaxed. There's no pull on that arm whatsoever. So it's all lower body, all legs. I guess that's why she threw 230. And then again, the delivery phase. This is a much better block than my earlier throw. Height of release, you can see he's up on the toe. His hips are leading the discus. They're leading the shoulders. They're ahead of the shoulders. So really good positions and really good demonstrations of what I was trying to describe. Okay. So I don't know if you want to take a picture of this and refer to it, but this is what I'm going to kind of go over. This is kind of our progression into the throw. So I'm going to go back to my stop screen sharing and go to my demonstrating. I never changed it. Okay, so I knew that was going to happen. All right, so we are starting the throw here, right? We are turning out of the back. We're stepping to the middle and then stepping to the front, and then we're going to throw. That's the whole throw. So progress backwards, right? We're in our standing throw position. Oh, that's just my camera. Okay, we're in our standing throw position here, right? Boom, throw. Okay, they've got that playing. They're getting more confidence. it looks reasonably like a discus throw. So now we're going to step it back, right? We're going to start with the right foot in the middle of the ring, or your power leg. Sorry for you lefties. Power leg in the ring. I'm going to let that discus swing nice and relaxed. I'm going to push my knee in, heel out, push off of my left leg, and end up in a standing throw position and throw, right? So there is nothing in our rules that say we have to come across the ring. It says we have to start and stop inside the ring, and that's all it says. So if you have an athlete that's scared of facing the back of the ring, have them do a 180 drill, right? Build their confidence up. Boom. And then part of our advanced drilling, multiple 180s, right? This is what they're doing off when they're not in the ring. They're on a piece of concrete, grass, whatever, doing those multiple 180s. That looks like this. Boom. Boom. I'm feeling that right foot turn, right? Turn, turn, turn. One of the things you're looking at when you're watching them do those drills, or even if a throw, how long do they keep their weight on that right leg, right? Or do they do something like, I'm going to change directions, right? Do they shift their weight to throw? Because that's what they want to do, right? What's wrong? My hips are not ahead of my shoulders. So I want to keep my weight, you can see that happening, right? My weight on that upper leg to get the hips ahead of the shoulders. Whew. Uh-oh. Blind lady. All right. Left off drill, right? It's the drill you love to hate. So you do your 180, you can do this in standing throw. They're not keeping their weight on that power leg. They're bringing their chest forward. Now I'm going to have them do that throw, right? And lift their leg off the ground. They have to stay on that right leg. It will not go very far. It is a drill. But you're teaching them whole part, right? What does that feel like, right? How can I implement that left off with the power? How do I relate those two? How do I put them together? All right, South African. So we've mastered that 180. We've got the plane. We're comfortable. We're going to move back, right, to a South African. We can go all different kinds of South Africans. But what I'm going to have you do now is just step, push your weight, knee over, sprint start, sprint on that left leg, drop to the middle of the ring. Oh, look, I'm in my 180. Now I've got it. I can go. Right? I'm confident. I'm getting better. Hard parts here, right? I can do a 360 drill to get out of the back of the ring. I can do it nice and slow. My high school coach said if I can do 10 in a row, I got a soda. I got the soda. Or you can start parting it out now. Quarter drill, right? Quarter drill. Bring it to the middle. Now I'm in that 180. And then put it all together. There's a lot of different drills we can do. Full throws, non-reverse, reverse. It's the ultimate how and why and what we should do. I am all about building confidence first. Let me change cameras so you can see me better. I'm all about building confidence of those athletes first. So non-reverse to me is a safer way to go. But the reverse, I've done it both ways, right? I've thrown over 200 feet with and without a reverse. All right, let me go back to screen sharing, get through this for you. Share. And this down here is important. The athlete's gonna throw the farthest where they're the most comfortable, right? So your job, as I see it, your job as a coach is to give that athlete the tools they need to get to a comfortable stage, a comfortable technique for them. And if they don't look like the world record holder, that's okay. There's a lot of different ways to make the discus go far. But success and them being comfortable are two things that go together. I mean, there are certain things that have to happen, like your hips do have to lead your shoulders. But other than that, don't be so stuck in coaching, because that limits you and it limits your athletes. Whew. My goodness, I don't know what I'm doing here. Starting points in coaching. So you're new to the sport. This is your first time coming in, or maybe you were selected to be that throwing coach. You got the short straw. You want to evaluate by the things that you know. Tim was talking about how I coached Kim in the javelin. And one of my biggest regrets was that I taught her to come into her plant with her foot perpendicular, her right foot perpendicular to her left, because that's what I knew. And I taught her that. And it was the wrong thing, right? But we learned how to correct it, or at least modify it enough to make her successful. So make the mistakes, learn from your mistakes. It's okay. And you're going to get that experience as a coach by the same way your athlete's going to get the experience as an athlete. You're going to make the mistakes, you're going to learn from them, and you're going to say, hey, this is how I do it better. And then each time you coach, you're going to see and learn new things that you're going to take to that next athlete and make them better. It's really kind of cool. You're going to get some specific experience, and then you're going to come to clinics and you're going to get more experience. And if you're that experienced coach that's out there watching, and you learn one thing from this, or one thing's reinforced, then you've benefited. It's time well spent. What motivations does that athlete need? Is it that success? Is it being in a social group? Is it making their parents proud? Find out what those motivations are. Find out what stimulates their desire to be the best they can be, and then teach it, and then use it. And then hopefully down the road, they use that as a career, in their career. Coach within their ability and capacity. Don't say you're going to be world record one day if you don't think they're going to be, or keep their goals doable. Keep it something they can accomplish, but don't give up the dream either. Flexible framework of teaching progression. That's what I was talking about earlier. Don't say this is the way it has to be done, because then you're limiting the type of athlete that you can coach, and you're limiting the way you can coach. We want to have the most amount of athletes successful. So be flexible. Figure out how to make each athlete successful. Oops. I think this has been around the block like 100 times. I think it was old the first time I saw it. But this is a really good kind of, if you're a young coach, it kind of gives you points to look at in a throw. So it's a nice tool. It breaks everything down piece by piece. If you actually did this as a thrower, you would never throw far. You'd probably not even get out of the back of the ring. But it's the whole thing put together. So as the athlete learning, you've got your movement stage. That's what we just did, right? We just went through piece by piece by piece and learning it. Things that, I talk to my staff and I tell them how I used to watch film when I was young. We'd film and then we'd send it off to the developer, and 3 weeks later we'd watch the movie, and it was melted in the middle or something. But you get on YouTube, watch film. You can do it all night. You'll learn the most by watching videos of people. Have the athletes look at themselves. What am I doing wrong? You can tell a lot by the flight of the discus. those types of things. And then drills, we went through those, all the drills, drilling. The balance is probably the most important thing. Balance and fluidity of movement, which kind of come together, right? If you're balanced, then you're going to have a fluid movement and you're going to have a far throw. To me, it's all the same. It's all part of that acceleration, right? It's not jerky. You're accelerating through. It's fluid. It's ballet. Ooh, me and ballet. So my husband made me put this on here. Yeah, so boom. Ooh, I think that was in San Jose at the Bruce Jenner Classic, maybe? Yeah, so, oh, we don't want to watch that again. Ow. All right, how do you get better? You become a student of the event and you do a lot of repetition, I can tell you, you watch me do drills. I haven't thrown or even coached in a bunch of months. So the drills you just saw me do is muscle memory. I guess I still have some muscle memory in my legs. So do we have questions?
Yes, we do. First off, a couple questions about the videos. Let me just make sure we're clear. We'll send you an email once they're all up. Well, everybody that's registered, we have your email. So once we get them up, you can keep checking the site, but we'll send you an email out to Ben say that they're up and you can watch them at that point. All right, let's go through these questions here. Some very good ones here. First off, so boys get to college, they have to throw a bigger discus. How do they get used to that collegiate discus?
Well, you can use different weighted discuses. The technique is generally the same. But basically the bigger you are, the stronger you are, the easier it is for you to throw that implement. And I would try to have them gradually move up in discus weights, like a international junior discus is heavier than a high school discus. And you can get discuses that have different weights to put in them so they can get used to that change. Usually
Would you ever have a high school boy throw a collegiate disc in practice?
Yeah, I've had, especially if they're big enough to do it. Yeah, I would.
Okay. How do you get your sweep leg out of the ring so high?
Sweep leg, your left leg out of the back of the ring, so high. Okay, so, right, it looks like it's high, right? But if it's this high and I'm dropping down, the leg comes up, right? So what I'm trying to do out of the back is not so much sweep that leg up as I am trying to drop and drive to the middle. So it's a concept of more, I'm dropping into the middle and turning as I'm loading that leg. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because that leads to the next question then, the same coach here. What's the job of the left leg and the right leg out of the back of the ring?
Okay, so the left leg is the linear force, and the right leg is crossing that linear force and causing the rotation and the torque. So as you're coming in, right, your left leg is stopping that drive to go across, and the right leg is crossing those hips. So I'm getting that torque and torsion built up through the middle of the ring. I just can't do it I can't say it without demonstrating. I'm sorry.
That's all right. That's good. All right. Is it better for a shot putter to spin to improve her discus throw?
Always that. So no, not necessarily. Depends on the type of athlete that you have. If you have an athlete that's got really good rotational skills and has a tight rotation, and they understand the difference between the linear drive and the discus and the torque building in the rotational shot, then you're good. If you have an athlete that isn't very good at turning, especially coming out of the back, then maybe the glide's better. You got to learn your athlete.
Okay. How many full throws do you take in a practice session?
Depends on the athlete. I would take, so drills are a warm-up. Drills can be a tool to learn, but the ultimate thing is the full throw. So how do I explain this? So earlier in the season, you may be taking more drilling throws, learning concepts, and then later towards your championship season, whatever that might be, you take less of the drilling throws, the stands, the 180s, the South Africans, and more of the full throws to get the rhythm of the throw before the competition.
Okay. Could you outline a warm-up for a thrower in competition?
Again, would depend on that thrower. I always like to take a couple stands just to get the heebie-jeebies out. If the thrower doesn't have, and then it's warm-up time too, right? How much is that official going to give you? But I would have, if your concept is working on their rotation through the middle, maybe you do more 180, taking a 180 and a South African. If you're working on more driving out of the back, maybe just go straight to the South African. So it depends on what you're working with and what you're emphasizing that athlete to do.
Okay, here's a good one. Is it okay for a beginner to use a rubber discus?
Yes.
Okay. Then when would they switch?
Oh, when I started throwing, that's all I had was rubber discuses. I don't even know. I guess, yeah, I think I do remember when I switched. Whoever got to throw the metal discuses was the best thrower. So I was always trying to be the best thrower. And that's another good reward system, isn't it? So I would, if you could afford to have the good discuses, the metal discuses, start with that. The rubber discuses benefit is that, it hits the cage and it's not quite as dangerous and all of that. But if you can get them throwing a metal discus right away, that would be awesome.
Okay. This is a South African throw legal?
If you start and stop inside the ring, yes. If you start outside the ring, no. But it kind of defeats the purpose of doing a South African, because the idea of the South African is to really get that drive across the ring. And if you're starting inside the ring, then there's not that much drive. So it's really more of a drill.
Okay. You said that you can tell how tell what a lot of a throw by how the discus flies. What does that mean?
That's a whole nother lecture. If your discus, so it's left the hand and it's flying this way, right? That means that when you've scooped the discus, so you've pushed your forces into the back of the discus. If your discus takes a nice flight and lifts up and then planes off and then drops down, that's what you're looking for. If your discus flies off to your right-handed and the discus flies off to the right, you're not finishing your either your hips or finishing the follow through in your arm. If your discus, see, I can go on and on. If the discus goes out the left side, so you're right-handed and it goes out that side of the sector, then your left foot is either not getting down or you're not blocking, so you're just pulling away, or you're overturning your right foot through the middle. So send me the video, I'll let you know.
Okay, here's a good one here. I hear many coaches talk about hand pressure with new athletes if their release is off. Can this be fixed with proper form, or should athletes focus on this?
Yeah, most athletes, young athletes, when they're throwing, they are going to put pressure in the wrong place. They'll either push hard on their thumb or their first finger. But if you go back to the bowling, keeping that arm relaxed, a nice fluid motion, then they'll learn how to throw. So they'll learn the pressure that they should have on the implement. It's all a process of repetition.
Okay. That was the fly question. Then, is the angle of release of a discus the same for a boy and for a girl?
Yes, basically, yes. We're looking at when you're releasing, you're looking at a small angle in the discus, so it'll lift into the air, and it's going to change again if we get real detailed, which we don't want to do here, depending upon the wind that you're throwing into. If you're throwing into a headwind, you want to throw higher. If you're throwing into a tailwind, it's the other way around. If you're throwing in tailwind, you want to throw higher and lower if a headwind. And that's not something we want to focus on for a high school kid.
Okay. I think we've covered all the questions there. We included your email in the chat. If you'd like to email Ramona and get the PowerPoint or ask questions, you certainly can. That's certainly okay with her. So we want to thank her very much. Ramona, that was great. I think you threw, what, 145 or so with a rubber discus in high school? How far did you throw with a rubber discus in high school?
I had a metal discus by then. I threw 147.
Very good. Thank you. I think it's probably still the league record there. All right. So thank you so much, Ramona. Really do appreciate it. We'd like to remind you, we'll be back at 8 o'clock with JT Ayers doing the 300-meter hurdle training. We'll be back tomorrow night at 6:30 with Nick Garcia doing developing strength, power, and explosiveness. So once again, Ramona, thank you very much. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. And we hope to see you in about a half hour for a little hurdling. There you go. Wave goodbye.
Later. So far. Bye.
All right. Throw far. We'll end on that. Throw far. All right. Good night, everybody.
Bye.